All right, Dad, what's your plan here?
That's a good question. Let me see.
Dad. Dad,
Yeah.
are you gonna throw?
Yeah. Watch this. Hey there everyone, I am Jeff and welcome to Tabletop Toolbox, where today two of my favorite hobbies come together as I talk about Final 9, a disc golf themed card game from designer Matthew Adams of Monkey Mind Games based in Australia. I'm going to open this video with a brief story, which you're more than welcome to skip if you'd like, using the timestamps I've provided in the description. But I started playing disc golf in 2019. It was a great hobby during 2020 when playing indoors was notoriously difficult to do. Already an enthusiastic board gamer, I was excited to back Final 9 on Kickstarter when it launched in 2020. And the following year, I would go on to produce a short disc golf board game themed video over on the Dice Tower's Board Game Breakfast series, which caught the attention of Final 9's designer. We've kept in touch ever since, and when I found out that an expansion to Final 9 was in the works, I reached out for a chance to feature it right here on this channel. And so I want to be clear that while Matthew provided a prototype copy for this video, I was already a fan of Final 9. Now, as I mentioned, this is an expansion, and I will be featuring some prototype art and rules that may change slightly before this game goes to print. But I want to first introduce you to the base game. Final 9 is essentially a card game, though the course cards in this box will function as something of a modular board, each one representing a hole of a disc golf course, which can be played in numerical order or randomized to create a unique course. The rest of these cards are split into two decks, one made of a variety of discs you'll use on each of your turns, and the other consisting of skill, deviation, call, and luck cards. I'll start off covering the turn sequence since it's fairly straightforward. Players will start each turn with a hand of 9 cards, 5 actions, and 4 discs. Later on, they can change that ratio as they wish. They'll first choose a disc from their hand, or they may attempt to trade a disc of theirs with one from another player. With the disc chosen, they'll determine the landing spot of the disc on the course card. The first shot starts from this arrow, representing the T-pad, and shots can be aimed in any of the cardinal directions. At this point, a player can play any number of blue skill cards from their hand. These cards may increase or even decrease the distance of the shot, useful if they're trying to get across or stop short of a hazard on the course. Skills may also increase or decrease the fade of the shot, which is the natural curve in the flight path of a spinning disc. So these cards could increase or decrease that lateral movement. Or with this flip card, you could mirror the flight path of the chosen disc. Now, while discs and skills can certainly help a player plan the perfect shot, disc golf never quite works so perfectly. And so with these cards chosen, players must then draw a random card from the top of the deck. This is referred to as the throw, and it kind of represents all the potential for chaos in that swift physical motion. If the card drawn is red or gray, it may have a negative impact on the flight path. This could be from wind, a deflection from a struck object, or other forms of pure dumb luck. These cards suck. I mean, they can suck so bad it's like I'm practically playing a real game of disc golf. But all hope need not be lost, because the last thing a player can do on their turn is play any number of gold luck cards. These could negate that wind, ignore that tree, or even let you nab the chains with a long-distance shot. Now the base game does all of this with a challenging but not overly punishing 18-hole disc golf course, and like I said, you can play the holes in order or not, it's up to you. The cards feature a decent variety of typical disc golf features like shrubs, which shorten your range when throwing out of, small lakes which incur a penalty, or even buildings which act as an out of bounds, also incurring a penalty. Some courses even feature a mando, or an obstacle you must clear from a specific direction. But you'll find a good variety of discs to let you deal with these challenges, with putters, mid-ranges, and drivers allowing for short to long range shots across these courses. Some discs even have special features like negating penalties from bushes or wind, or both. Now, luck is obviously a factor in this game. For one, you might not have a good disc for the current layout, without a clear path to the basket, without anything in your hand. And of course, you could draw a handful of the red or gray cards, which are useless in a player's hand. Lastly, drawing those red or gray cards during your throw can understandably and sometimes frustratingly throw your entire plans out the window. But there is a decent amount of mitigation here within Final 9. First, at the start of each hole, players can discard any 2 cards from their hand and draw back from either deck of their choice. Second, I already mentioned that you can trade discs with your fellow players, which I love as a thematic aspect of this game. I've had plenty of times where a friend has suggested or offered to let me try a disc of theirs to see if it works with my throwing technique or might help me with a unique challenge I'm currently faced with. There is also an option to simply discard a disc and draw a replacement for a one-shot penalty. It is a gamble, of course, but it's not unusual to be perched perilously between a few trees, muttering, "Here goes nothing." And as far as these card draws go, they're not as risky as they may seem. Some of these only apply to putting or non-putting shots, and when drawn on the opposite type of shot or when drawing a skill or luck card, nothing bad happens at all. And if you do draw a skill or luck card with an instant effect, you may apply its effects if you wish. Of course, sometimes you'll even hope for a disc to drop a little early or fade a little more or less if your disc isn't quite what you need for the shot anyways. So again, these aren't as bad as they may seem. Now let me go ahead and transition into the new expansions. On its own, the expansion triples the Final 9 experience with new forest and suburban courses. The great thing here is that there's almost no change whatsoever to the rules. Spare one added step I'll get to in a moment. The biggest change here is the new courses. You'll be trading in that relaxing, forgiving, and sparsely obstructed park course for a sloping, challenging course in a wooded forest, or perhaps a technical, busy course in a densely populated suburban area. These courses are quite technical, and to help with that, this expansion adds a new set of fairway drivers with unique flight patterns. These discs can skip spaces and thus obstructions on the course, and could even allow for diagonal travel. Some of them are also resistant to the slope of the course itself, which is a good segue into some of the specific challenges you'll face out in the field. The bushes from the base game have grown up into dense areas of forest. Any disc flying in or through a forest space gets stuck in the first space it enters, and that player will have a distance penalty for their next shot. In addition, sloped terrain has been realized with these icons across these courses. Discs landing on these spaces will roll, in effect, in the direction of the arrows to the adjacent space. Some baskets are even installed on small hills. Discs that land on these spots without hitting the chains will roll back one space in the direction the disc came from. The forests and slopes are a predictable threat on the course, but the new ricochet effect is quite unpredictable. These spaces on the forest course represent a cluster of trees, and discs that enter these spaces trigger an additional card draw from the action deck, with this reference chart to indicate what happens based solely on the color of the card drawn. Your disc could drop to the ground, kick to the space left or right of the cluster, or get lucky and pass straight through. This same methodology is applied to the new suburban course of the expansion as well. Players will now have yards, streets, and residential houses to carefully navigate around. Landing in someone's yard will incur a penalty stroke on your next shot. Discs will typically skip once across any street they land on, adding additional forward movement, but staying on a street constitutes an out of bounds and a penalty. Any disc landing on the roof of a building triggers another card draw check to see which direction the disc skips in, and this could result in a chain reaction if the disc is still on a roof after resolving the check. So hopefully that helps you get a good overview of the base game of Final 9 as well as the 2 major courses that are added with the new expansion. But that's not actually everything in this box. There are also 6 additional mini expansions that add more variation to the game, more content to play with, and even a completely new way to play. Now I won't go through each of these in detail in the interest of both time and the fact that I haven't gotten to try them all, but the Tee-Off expansion adds a super quick dexterity based minigame where players flick their disc tokens at the disc golf basket meeple to determine who gets to be the first player. The Bad Form expansion adds rather nasty deviation cards to the action deck that can simply increase the challenge of the base game or either expansion course. The Mischief expansion adds 6 rather mean cards that can be used against other players only in the battle mode, which I'll admit I've never tried. The Characters expansion adds a variety of cards representing personas players can play as. These 2-sided cards give each player some unique abilities, which they can use any one of during the front 9 and back 9 of any course in the game. And then there's the Ace Run module, providing something of a speedrun version of the game. This one does take a little bit of setup, requiring you to remove all the putter discs, and I might personally remove the mid-ranges as well, and any and all action cards that don't change the distance or fade or flip the direction of the shot. You then add these 5 ace cards to the action deck, which adds some very unique abilities, and then pull out 9 specific holes from the base game. Each player only gets 1 shot on each hole, but they can play deviation cards as well as skill cards before their throw, and can basically treat any card as optional, all with the goal of acing their shot, the disc golf equivalent of a hole-in-one. The highest number of aces wins this game, making it a fast-paced and frankly crazy experience. And if you like that random chance of hitting the chains, you can lastly add the Chain Links expansion, requiring the same draw to see if your shot makes it into the basket with each attempted putt. You know, I felt several years ago, and I still believe now, that this is a great game, capturing the spirit, the tactical approach, and the roller coaster of emotions experienced when playing disc golf, like when an open drive falls flat or when a tree is missed by mere inches. These new expansions, as I've already illustrated, really up the challenge of the game. They make the bad luck a little more bad, and the good luck that much more rewarding. In my plays on the new courses, I did find myself taking bigger risks, landing a few bogeys or even double bogeys, and even engaging more with disc trading. And even when things went bad, when that tree kicked my disc into the drink, I did initially get a bit frustrated. And then I found myself laughing at the fact that I could remember a time when the exact same thing happened on a local course. And you know what? There's even a bit more that I have left out here, like 3 levels of difficulty, the highest of which adds varying wind to each hole, and a light mode that takes some of the more punishing cards out of the game. To see more about those and about the game in general, be sure to check out the Final 9 Kickstarter page, which will be live through August of 2024. You could also go to just about any sporting goods store, get yourself a set of starter discs, go outside, and check out this cool hobby for yourself. I'm going to finish off this video just like I did the last one. Happy chaining, folks. Cheers. That goes in.
That was right next to it. Oh, that would have been so cool if it actually made it in.
That would have been amazing.